Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark.
Is it possible that Indiana's Caitlin Clark period may end before it really starts? With rumors of a full-fledged crisis involving the biggest star in the WNBA intensifying into a deafening boom, that is the startling question reverberating around the sports world. This goes beyond a team's difficult beginning or the growing pains of a rookie. This is about a phenomenon that is poised to implode, a generational genius who is being driven to her breaking point by an unrelenting campaign of sabotage from all directions, according to some. Stephen A. Smith, one of the most prominent figures in sports media, has now effectively proven what many have been afraid of. The idea that Caitlin Clark wants to leave the business is no longer merely a wild, speculative rumor, and the situation in Indiana is getting dangerously unstable. It is a horrifyingly plausible scenario. The drama is reaching previously unheard of heights, the pressure is increasing with each game, and behind the scenes, a fierce struggle is taking place that might decide not only Clark's destiny but the league's as well. Clark was meant to rise to the top on her own. The arrival of a college hero destined to revolutionize professional women's basketball, which was once widely hailed as a fairy tale, has swiftly and brutally turned into a public nightmare. A perfect storm of internal strife, professional envy throughout the league, and a startling, quite inconceivable degree of institutional betrayal that no one anticipated is being described by sources both inside and outside the league. The explosion that may completely upend the WNBA suddenly appears to be not just possible but impending. The fire has been lit for weeks, and the sizzle is getting louder with every scandal. This narrative is now about the anatomy of a breakdown, a system that appears to be betraying its own rescuer, and a young woman's battle to survive it all rather than basketball. When Stephen A. Smith, a guy whose voice carries the weight of a cultural institution, went on his national television platform and unabashedly placed the responsibility squarely at the feet of the WNBA and the Indiana Fever franchise, the firestorm really got underway and earned national validity. He provided a clear, devastating image of a league and a club that aggressively, almost purposefully, failed their brightest and most valuable star, rather than merely criticizing a few terrible plays or a faulty coaching approach. He described the entire situation as a DMN embarrassment and a black eye on the sport, speaking with unadulterated anger about a degree of contempt and overt physical targeting that went much beyond the usual rookie hazing. Not as a beat writer disclosing a trade rumor, but as a potent cultural analyst identifying a pervasive illness in the league's culture, his remarks carried enormous, indisputable weight. He fervently maintained that those in positions of authority, ranging from league executives to rival players, were so preoccupied with old guard gatekeeping and petty jealousies that they were prepared to jeopardize their own golden goose. The one athlete that gave them media deals worth millions of dollars, sold-out venues, and charter aircraft. The world was made aware that what we are all seeing on the court, night after night, is not normal by Smith's fierce defense of Clark. It was a public service announcement, stating that Clark has been thrust into a hostile, unprofessional, and possibly career-threatening situation. He successfully provided the millions of viewers at home with a respectable, popular voice, feeling that the way she was being treated was fundamentally flawed. This was a blatant warning, not merely a sports analysis. A caution that if things don't radically alter, it's possible that the league will lose the one individual who has given them unheard of levels of attention, viewership, and mainstream cultural relevance. A voice like his doesn't raise an alarm that loud unless the fire is already raging. Out of control, thus his sharp remarks swiftly turned the quit rumors from fringe fan conjecture into a terrifyingly plausible prospect. However, this catastrophic tale is only half the story. The enormous external pressure from the rest of the league, an unrelenting maze of animosity. A rising number of insiders and analysts believe that the Indiana Fever organization itself may be the source of the true rot, particularly with the dubious coaching and leadership from the sidelines. Although Stephanie White is provocatively mentioned in the video title, Christie Sides, the head coach of Indiana, seems to be the real cause of internal strife and a perplexing lack of support. On the surface, a coach and a star player who can change a franchise should form a solid alliance and present a unified front to the outside world. However, the on-court product has appeared disjointed, unprofessional, and strategically chaotic, which has horrified fans and basketball purists. The sad hallmarks of the Fever's poor season have been dubious and uneven player rotations, a dearth of innovative offensive methods to give Clark open shots, and defensive tactics that constantly expose and target her. But the news conferences held after the game have been much more damning and revealing. Rather of zealously and passionately protecting her franchise player from the hard, frequently non-basketball brutality she's experiencing, Coach Sides has often responded in a corporate, generic, and unconvincing manner. Her startling lack of public outrage following particularly hazardous and severe fouls against Clark has been deafening to a fan base that is yearning for a leader to fight for their hero. This has fueled a potent and harmful narrative that she is either totally incompetent and unable to manage the intense pressure and media attention that come with coaching a global superstar, or worse, that she is unaware of the seriousness of the psychological and physical harm being done to her most valuable player. A young player feels completely abandoned and shielded by the one person who ought to be her strongest and most outspoken supporter in this poisonous and alienating atmosphere. This apparent and highly visible lack of support from her own bench is a devastating psychological blow, adding a very personal layer of emotional betrayal to the ongoing onslaught of outside criticism she must endure each and every night she takes the court. And those attacks have been nothing short of unrelenting, and at times their arrogance has been really astounding. Playing tough defense and welcoming a newcomer to the league aren't the only things involved. Caitlin Clark is being subjected to a deliberate and focused physical intimidation campaign that is intended to shatter her. Of course, the most notorious and well-known instance was Chendi Carter of the Chicago Sky's obvious off-ball hip check, which had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with sending a thuggish, deliberate message of disdain. However, that was only the most noticeable instance in an unsettling and ongoing string of illegal screens, off-ball cheap shots, hard shoves, and dangerously aggressive closeouts that have become a nightly, predictable occurrence. It appears that rival players in the league are working under a clear, unwritten directive. Try to shatter Clark's spirit before you break her body by being as rough as you can with her and continuously pushing the boundaries of what the refs will let. The confusing response, or rather, lack thereof, from the league office and, most importantly, her own colleagues is what makes this scenario so much more pernicious. The league reluctantly upgraded Carter's egregious foul only after a tremendous and persistent public uproar from fans and media nationwide. And even then, many seasoned players felt that Clark needed to toughen up because he was too soft. She is now on a lonely island and must endure a degree of torment that would have seasoned NBA players pleading for help and demanding retribution. It reveals a dark, troubling underbelly of the league, where professional jealousy and resentment seem to be trumping basic sportsmanship and player safety, creating an environment where the league's greatest asset is also its biggest target. It's a lonely, frustrating, and physically dangerous position to be in. When it appeared that things couldn't get any worse on the court, Clark experienced what many are characterizing as the greatest betrayal of all. She was mysteriously excluded from the American women's basketball team for the Olympics. The entire sports world was rocked by this one choice, and the consequences went much beyond the typical WNBA fan base. One may construct a tenuous case for her exclusion based just on basketball, citing her inexperience with the senior national team. However, it was a disastrous, self-inflicted blow of epic proportions from the standpoint of marketing, commerce, and the expansion of the sport. It felt like a very personal and professional slap in the face to exclude the nation's most well-liked and culturally significant basketball player from the Olympic squad. Clark and her millions of new admirers received a chilly, obvious message from the basketball establishment, the firmly established old guard. You are not one of us. You are an outsider. This must have been a devastating emotional blow for Clark, who had publicly expressed her desire to represent her nation on the grandest platform in the world. It effectively reaffirmed the isolating notion that regardless of how many tickets she sells, how many viewership records she breaks, or how much unheard-of exposure she provides to their sport, there are influential individuals in positions of power who oppose her achieving success on her own terms. There was more to the Olympic snub than just a roster berth. It was a humiliating and highly visible admission that the system was against her. Any athlete would be driven to their breaking point by this intense degree of institutional rejection, the nightly physical assault, and the mounting difficulties within her own team. The league office and the Olympic selection committee may not be the end of that extremely uncomfortable sense of being a total outsider. There are persistent, rising rumors that it even reaches her personal locker room. The on-court body language throughout the season has conveyed an intriguing and unsettling tale, even though there haven't been any known public altercations or locker room explosions. The cavalry has hardly, if ever, shown up when Clark has been the victim of a severe illegal foul. Her teammates frequently take a very long time to assist her in getting off the ground or to confront the perpetrator. Fans and experts have notably criticized Aaliyah Boston, the team's other standout player, for not playing a more outspoken and physical protective role for her young point guard, a position that is customary for star pairings in professional sports. The outcome is the same whether this is a conscious decision, motivated by jealousy, or just a blatant lack of team cohesion and leadership. Caitlin Clark frequently appears to be by herself. This directly contributes to the unpleasant yet enduring story of jealousy in the workplace. Is it really feasible that some of her comrades have resentment against the enormous, all-encompassing limelight she? Is it possible that Indiana's Caitlin Clark period may end before it really starts? With rumors of a full-fledged crisis involving the biggest star in the WNBA intensifying into a deafening boom, that is the startling question reverberating around the sports world. This goes beyond a team's difficult beginning or the growing pains of a rookie. This is about a phenomenon that is poised to implode, a generational genius who is being driven to her breaking point by an unrelenting campaign of sabotage from all directions, according to some. Stephen A. Smith, one of the most prominent figures in sports media, has now effectively proven what many have been afraid of. The idea that Caitlin Clark wants to leave the business is no longer merely a wild, speculative rumor, and the situation in Indiana is getting dangerously unstable. It is a horrifyingly plausible scenario. The drama is reaching previously unheard of heights, the pressure is increasing with each game, and behind the scenes, a fierce struggle is taking place that might decide not only Clark's destiny but the league's as well. Clark was meant to rise to the top on her own. The arrival of a college hero destined to revolutionize professional women's basketball, which was once widely hailed as a fairy tale, has swiftly and brutally turned into a public nightmare. A perfect storm of internal strife, professional envy throughout the league, and a startling, quite inconceivable degree of institutional betrayal that no one anticipated is being described by sources both inside and outside the league. The explosion that may completely upend the WNBA suddenly appears to be not just possible but impending. The fire